Hi, everyone. This is Gary Gomes. I'm here with the weekly Jyotish locality um, broadcast, and I'll probably be posting some more this week. Ambitions, feeling kind of ambitious over the next few weeks. And it could be because Venus is retrograde, and I'm sort of like on the cusp between my 10th and 11th house of gains. So it's without getting too astrological uh, with you, that's sort of like an aspirational house. Um, but so let me give you some very brief background um, on this webcast slash TV show. I've been doing this since around 2019 and posting both to Great and New Bedford cable um, TV and also on YouTube and various other sites. So this is a broadcast about Vedic astrology and how it affects both you and the people around you and the world around us. And Indian astrology or Vedic astrology is a very old tradition. There are some scholars who say it's 5,000 years old. Some who are not quite so generous about that, but it's pretty old. It's a pretty old continuous system. And there are many, many subsets and schools to it. Uh, I'm focusing mostly on a system which is called Parashari astrology when I do these broadcasts, although I will slip in other things I've picked up through the years. And the main intent is to educate and inform and also to make you aware of the various planetary energies and how they could help or hurt you. And I'm also working on developing a school that's been in progress for quite a few years now. I'm also working on a book which has been in progress for quite a few years now. And also, I'm working currently uh, with the American College of Vedic Astrology as a tutor, so you can take classes with me there. I also tutor individually. I teach Vedic astrology individually. I've had 30 plus years experience in the field. And I also do readings for people. So you can contact me for any of those services at 508 525 0001. Again, that's 508 525 0001. I am on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Twitter. I'm on a variety on Instagram. I'm on a variety of media sites, and you can learn more details about my life and my experience by going to those sites. And we'll go from there. I have had an extensive background, but I don't want to seem to be bragging when I'm doing these. So I just, and again, it's really not important to you what I did and who I knew and who I connected with through the years. It's actually rather, it's it's much less important than the information I'm going to give you. Okay, so it's again, if you want to contact me, you can contact me through the YouTube channel too. I would encourage you to subscribe, like, and recommend this channel to your friends. We will be doing better graphics. We will be doing better quality presentations shortly. I know I've been promising that for about a year, but that is coming. And I appreciate all the support I've seen so far. I'm also working on pujas, which are essentially remedial measures, and so I'll be equipped to do those for you relatively shortly for a small fee. And And when I say small compared to the other thieves, you'll see out there it's extremely small. And so we'll go from there. Okay. So enough of the self-advertisement, and let's get to the chart. So I usually share the chart with you a few times. I like that this is a South Indian chart. I like this particular chart format. Let me close it. It's not sharing. I can see right now. So let me try it again. All right, looks like it's sharing now, and I usually do it 3 times per week. Okay. Let's talk about the rule of 3 in Indian astrology and a lot of things. So we do it 3 times per week. Okay. So, oh, thank God. Well, thank God and thank. It's a little bit more obvious. We're the planetary weather this past week has been extremely rough for people, and I can point to several culprits in that. So this is just a general environment that you're facing right now, and it'll be over relatively soon, but there'll still be residual problems connected with certain planets. So let me get to that right now. This chart is I I've gone over this before, but this is Pisces in the upper left-hand side, and that's Aries, and that's Jupiter. I'm sorry, that's Taurus. Well, so that's Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, um, Cancer. Sun's in Cancer, you'll notice, not in Leo, where you would expect to see it in Western astrology, because uh, 99% of Hindu or Indian astrology uses a sidereal or a star-based zodiac, and that means um, the zodiac differs by about 23 to 24 degrees from where it would be in Western astrology. So a lot of you folks out there who think you're Leos are really Cancers. Um, but again, that's according to the Vedic system. It doesn't mean the Western system is wrong. They just have a different way of organizing space. Um, that's Leo right here with all the planets in it. That's um, Virgo, Libra. This is an important placement, by the way, at K2 in Libra. K2 is the south lunar node. It takes things away, or it causes a certain amount of laziness or withdrawal. Um, and also interest in spirituality, interest in seclusion and working on yourself. So it depends on what other factors are driving the chart as to whether it manifests as being um, spiritual or accident prone or um, lazy, putting off till tomorrow, procrastinating. That's Scorpio, that's Sagittarius, that's Capricorn, and we can see a big Pluto in Capricorn right there. That's a big factor for a lot of Western astrologers. That's what they would blame a lot of the disruptions we've seen over the past few years. I tend to use Pluto, not pretty much not at all. I'll use it occasionally because I use more of a classical approach to interpretation, because I think Pluto and Uranus and Neptune are a bit redundant in chart analysis. Because you have other planets that can take their place. It doesn't mean it's wrong to use them. It's just I find it I find I end up repeating myself a lot if I use them. And this is Aquarius, and that's Pisces. Now, the first thing I want to point out is as I'm recording this, we have Venus, Mercury, Mars in the first house in Leo. So Venus is in a point of space which is close to the borderline between signs, between Cancer and Leo. It's in a nakshatra called Magha, which is connected with our ancestors, with our predecessors. So there's a lot of emphasis on tradition. Now, the problem with this particular placement is Venus retrogrades. Retrogrades tend to be strong by definition because they seem to be slowing down and stationary in state and putting their full energy on the earth. They're not really, but they're slower moving, and slower moving planets tend to have more power than faster moving planets. Saturn is also retrograde in this chart, and that's aspecting the retrograde Venus. So Saturn takes away things or deprives things or makes people bitter or feel deprived or feel sad. So I've encountered a lot of people who had like real serious relationship problems. Saturn is aspecting Mars, and Mars is aspecting Saturn. That gives certain perfectionist tendencies to people. And it also has Mercury is also there, and Mercury Mars conjunctions tend to make people misrepresent things for advantage. Jupiter's, so this Leo is really concentrated. You have Jupiter also aspecting Leo. Indian astrology aspects. This would be a trinal aspect in Western astrology, but it's a full aspect in Indian astrology. And I think one of the things you've seen over the past week is people getting depressed or upset emotionally or romantically, or people's expectations not living up to where they should be. Also, this spreads out into the larger world. We've seen a lot of indictments or legal issues popping up between, especially in the United States, on the part of both parties, okay, both the left and the right. And obviously, we've seen the indictments of Trump. We've seen allegations of wrongdoing in the Biden camp. We've seen additional facts come out about the pandemic, which are being covered um, in journals like the New York Times, which is considered to be pretty mainstream or pretty standard. So a lot of things that were considered conspiracy theories are actually popping out. And the reason we're seeing so much scandal right now or so much upset right now is because number one, Venus is, although it's strong by retrogression, it's weak by degree. And it'll be weak by degree for at least the next couple of weeks. Okay. And it's moving back into a Shlesha nakshatra, which is essentially a kind of a power grab nakshatra. It's a little bit of an oversimplification, but the end of Cancer is not really. It's good for success, but is parts of it can be a little bit unethical. Okay, and I think one of the things you're seeing right now is this call to precedence. So essentially we're seeing a lot of the press coverage going back to precedence. So we're seeing a lot of things that are related to history, even what's happening in France, between France and Niger, which Niger's withholding its uranium from France right now. And we're seeing certain other countries in Africa and in Asia essentially bringing in old conflicts and resorting to what I would call paybacks. You can see it in terms of domestic matters. So there was a widely publicized Justin Trudeau is just separated from his wife. Um, and so you can see a lot of these things on the international arena. And the Jupiter Rahu conjunction, which will thankfully be over in December, will give us a clearer idea of what's going on. But I think it was just my overall interpretation. Um, I think um, the politicians are both taking it. Um, they're exaggerating the issues that popped up both in 2020 and especially in 2020. And this is sort of a callback to 2020 because Saturn's moving backwards towards Capricorn, right? So I think one of the things that we're looking at, so we're looking at this shakeup that occurred in 2020 where we had like allegations of election fraud and allegations of um, news coverage and allegations of weaponization of the media. Um, those were all popping up. Those were like all unresolved karmas from like 2 to 3 years ago. And that would have been consistent with Saturn entering Capricorn. So a lot of this stuff will be dredged up. A lot of this stuff will be discussed. Plus, there's a lot of anger here and a lot of lying going on. Okay. So Mars is aspecting Saturn. There's this desire to get everything really tight, and there's a revenge aspect to this chart. But also Mars is aspecting Moon because that's how they work. Both Saturn and Mars are aspecting Scorpio, which is a sign connected with secrets. Jupiter's so both Saturn and Jupiter, to a very large extent, are affecting the entire chart. Saturn more so, because Saturn is making us relive the past. Okay. And I think we're seeing that in terms of the riots happening in France. We're seeing it happening in terms of scandals that are coming up connected with pharmaceutical companies. I think we're seeing it come up in scandals connected with the media. You know, the media coverage has been really spotty. We're seeing it, and a lot of the really focused attention on intelligence agencies, both here and abroad, is really based upon Saturn and Mars aspect on Scorpio, which is connected with intelligence agencies. So I think we're not going to see a lot of this end anytime soon. Certainly, most of August um, will be wrapped up in like vitriolic attacks and people claiming they're doing it for a higher moral cause when actually both sides are doing it for self-aggrandizing reasons. That doesn't mean to say that nobody's done anything wrong. Okay, lots of people have done things that are wrong, but this is really the politicalization. If I can get that, I have a tough enough time with words. The politicalization of both natural resources. So we're seeing that happen with China. You know, China is exerting more and more influence in Africa, which is a natural resource-rich continent. Niger is, and Niger is withholding resources. There are riots in France connected with previous administrations. The war in the Ukraine is not going well for the Ukraine right now. And to a certain extent, some people are saying this was kind of inevitable. Although I don't view history as being inevitable at all. You know, there have been many surprises and many shocks in history. But, um, but basically, a lot of things that had been covered up as lies will be doubled down on, and there'll be a great deal of embarrassment on both sides um, of political camps by the end of the year. I think one of the things we can expect 2024 to show is number one, there'll be attempts at swift justice to be made, but I don't think they'll be successful, but there'll be attempts made. And the other thing is there'll be more clarity about what the nature of a lot of the scandals really are. And you'll see people lose positions because of it. You're already seeing that happen. Uh, there are a lot of governments around the world that are stepping down. And you'll also see transitions. So New Zealand, Australia, I think have had changes in government. I mean, I won't be surprised to see many, many more. And this is also K2 and Rahu will be moving into um, what I would call uh, changeable signs. Pisces and Virgo are changeable. So K2 will essentially have new standards put in place. Rahu will have more people turning in spiritual directions, maybe even apocalyptic directions, not doing anything to eliminate, but there'll be increasing fear of uh, apocalyptic scenarios. But you'll also see a lot more innovation happening right now. This is interesting. I just saw coverage the other day on um, superconductivity. A lot of research is happening in Southeast Asia and in Korea and China in particular. But superconductivity can actually help reduce energy consumption without switching to alternative means of energy production. So you can have a more efficient electrical grid or power consumption grid because superconductivity does away with the loss of energy due to heat. And so this is maybe the next big technological change we'll see in the world. But let's see what happens. Um, and communications will also be more fragmented. I think the trend we're seeing towards fragmenting news organizations and especially old companies, corporations aren't going away. That's wishful thinking. Corporations are not going away because they're too much a part and parcel of the fabric of the world right now. But I think you'll also see um, more decentralization of news um, and more decentralization of power centers. So governments won't governments will mean a great deal because people need some kind of a security system. Um, and you'll see, as in the 1970s, you'll see more of a barter economy developing. Um, I don't think a substitute currency will quite do it like crypto, but I can see a barter economy developing much more aggressively. Um, and a lot of the thing like the debt crisis in the United States is being overblown because there was a comparable um, decline in 2011 during the last budgetary showdown. So I so and again, as I've said to many people, um, governments are not as fragile as they appear. So when I'm saying we're looking at changes in governments, I'm not looking at unless they're already really like teetering on the bridge or the resources are overcommitted, which I think is true in Europe. Um, I don't think you're going to see Germany take over France or France take over Germany or England, um, um, absorbed by Spain or anything like that. That's not going to happen. But I do think Europe over the next 20 or so years will lose a lot of its dominance in the world. United States less so, far less so. Uh, so it's, but again, that's my judgment. And a lot of the new alliance in currencies. So for those of you who are aware of that, there are about 5 or 6 nations which are trying to align to develop separate economic centers that aren't reliant on the dollar for the reference. And this is must be boring to a lot of people because it's like, oh, it's just economics. But economics affects everyone's life. But I think you won't see the dollar go away anytime soon as a major currency, and it'll still be an important factor, but you will see more of a push towards a decentralized monetary system. So again, more fragmentation, but again, this gives corporations more um, strength in the long run. That's the downside to it. So, um, but I'll get into that in future episodes. I want to get to your individual charts right now, and then get to the world map. And I'm going to go through the individual charts relatively rapidly this week because I've spent a lot of time talking about this. But expect a lot of religious scandals, a lot of government scandals still ongoing, at least into next year, and consequences, extreme consequences being felt in terms of change and transition, especially after April of next year. Okay. So let's see over here what we have. So for Aries, Aries has a great Rahu Jupiter conjunction in the first house. That's good for realizing his goals, realizing his strengths, and the sun's in the fourth house. So there's a lot of focus on home life and a lot of focus on children. So children um, maybe some lies from the past are coming to haunt children, or some um, they'll engage in bad behavior, or maybe some lies, or um, some hidden acts uh, you've done before, especially connected to a relationship life, will come to fruition, will come to light. K2's in the seventh house, not necessarily a good combination for stability in relationships, at least through September 2nd. Um, and eighth house, Mars is the Lord of the eighth house and the fifth house. So again, there's some potential legacies through stocks or through um, receiving money from people you know. And Saturn's in the 11th house, so slow gains. Moon's in the 12th house, so again, expenditure on property. Taurus has no planets in the first house, but Rahu and Jupiter in the 12th house. So this means spending money on friends, also spending money on wife or relationship partner, spending money, um, especially on the home front. And there'll be fights about money at home. Okay. Sun's in the third house. This sign will not be denied what it wants this month. K2's in the sixth. You still have to watch out for hidden enemies or illnesses, especially at work. Saturn is aspecting Jupiter in this chart. So that, again, tends to give expenditures because of work or because of friendships. For Gemini, Gemini has some financial gains, but Mercury is right now is hemmed in between Venus, which is a benefic, and Mars, which is a malefic. Now, this Venus is not necessarily well placed because it's retrograde. And if you look down here, Sun actually has in Venus and Mercury. So there'll be some problems in communications in relationship life. Okay. So this chart makes this sign very aggressive. This month, very unhappy. And also, K2 can give possible breakups in relationship life, possible problems with children. Saturn's in the ninth house, aspecting Jupiter. So again, it gives strong potential for relationship problems. These look temporary to me, but you should keep alert that people will misinterpret information you give them about relationships, or will get jealous for no good reason and even walk out. So that's the extreme. That's the extreme point. That's not necessarily a guaranteed for everybody. For Cancer, Sun, career-wise, this sign will do well, but again, it'll seem like they're not making a lot of money. So that's for Gemini. For Cancer, you have no plans in you have Sun in the first house, it's Lord of the second house, so there'll be a lot of focus on money. And the Lord of the seventh house, relationships seem to be irretrievable or difficult to manage. Venus, Mercury, and Mars in the second house, the person will be prone to um, lying or misrepresenting their relationship life, but also relationship partners will be subject to lies or easily fooled. The third house Lord is in the second house, so there's a strong desire to communicate with people. Ketu's in the fourth house, the Lord of the first, and the Lord of Ketu is Venus. So again, this does block money just a little bit for the sign. Career-wise, this sign will be working a lot, but every time it shows a little bit of movement ahead, it'll pull back just a little bit. Moon is in the ninth house. That shows good gains through public life. Saturn is in the seventh house. I'm sorry, Saturn is in the eighth house. You've already spoken about that. So some disruption in relationship life, but some unexpected gains. So again, this sign is not having a really good week. And unfortunately, this will persist throughout most of September. But I think over the next week, Venus moves into Cancer. It'll make it a little bit softer. It'll make it a little bit more, it'll calm down the sign a lot. For Leo, Leo has Venus, Mercury, and Mars in the first house. So some potential for gains, some potential for fulfillment of ambitions, some potential for savings because the Lord of the first house will move because Venus will move into the 12th house along with the Sun. And around the 15th, the Sun will enter this sign. And so this sign will gain a lot more confidence. With the Lord of the second house and the first house, a lot of focus on money, a lot of frustration connected with money because of Saturn aspecting this cluster of planets. That's going to be problematic for about, I say, about 2 weeks. And at least from this chart, so finances will be kind of at a standstill for about 2 weeks. And K2's in the third. That's actually a good placement. So it'll give the sun a lot of courage. Jupiter's in the ninth. I think one of the things about this combination is there'll be promises of money, but not really, again, like I said, pullbacks. But you will finally start to see some breakthroughs, I would say, in the next week and also again in September. Moon is in the eighth house, unexpected short-term gains of money for this chart. And finally, let's go down. Okay, so this is Virgo. Virgo has a lot of planets in the 12th house, so this gives a lot of expenses to this sign. Some of it will be on things you enjoy. Some of it will be to placate people who are lying to you. Some of it will be so the Venus Mercury conjunction is actually pretty good. You'll be in communications with a lot of people, have a lot of success dealing with people around the world, but also with K2 in the second house, it kind of restricts money and makes it impossible for people to take you very seriously. Saturn's in the sixth house. That'll give some lethargy and some anger about that. And lethargy just means plain English laziness, or a feeling of being depressed. And that'll cause some anger and some nasty words. Moon is in the seventh house, so there could be a feeling of wanting to change relationship partners or wanting to deal with new people. Jupiter's in the eighth house. There's a feeling of detachment from relationship partners, and overall, this is kind of a rough month for this rough week for this particular sign. Within about 2 weeks, you'll start to get sharper and more energetic and more on top of your game. Okay, so that's a good thing. For Libra, K2's in the first house, Jupiter's with Rahu in the seventh house. So this can have you prospecting for different relationship partners. And what I mean by prospecting is saying, I wonder if I could make it with that person, or I wonder if I could make it with this person. But K2 will also cause a certain amount of inaction, so there's not really a lot of danger of adultery. However, you do have a lot of planets in the 11th house, and this is giving a strong desire for new friends and for new contacts and for new activities. The only problem is Saturn is making it difficult for you to get moving because you want to make sure it's exactly the right person, a person who can, uh, and this is friendships, not romantic involvements, a person who can like you under any circumstances, which is kind of impossible, and also who will stand by you under any circumstances, which again is kind of impossible. But again, you'll start to see a lot of investigation of unusual or esoteric resources. Some relationship opportunities, but I wouldn't jump too quickly into those relationships, mainly because of the Rahu being here. A lot of attraction to people in different countries or different cultures, and especially even in partnerships, and not just romantic involvements, but partnerships. And let's see now, 1, 2, 3. Saturn in the fifth house, romantically, it's really not a good placement for this particular sign because you'll be attracted to people who are kind of not necessarily inappropriate, but who are really they're just interested in making it work as opposed to making you happy. Now, again, happiness comes from within, but sometimes romantic partnerships can make it much more difficult. So again, not a good time for Libra rising or sun to get into new relationships, or else they'll be relatively short-lived. Uh, for Scorpio, Scorpio has career-wise, good month career-wise for or good week and good couple of months for Scorpio career-wise, really through September 15th. And you'll start to see some financial gains for the sign as well. My apologies, there are financial gains for the sign as well. But in terms of relationships, you'll be kind of stuck with the people you know for a little while. which is actually fine because you can actually build something solid with them. That's not a bad thing. And I think overall from this chart, I would focus on career and focus on financial gains more so than anything else. Try to limit spending just a little bit. For Scorpio, Scorpio has no planets in the seventh house, although the seventh lord is with Venus, Mars, Mercury, and there will be this feeling of being isolated if you're Scorpio at this particular time. Um, Moon is in the fifth house, so there will be potential for romantic involvements. That's not necessarily a bad thing. Is not quite as afflicted as other placements, but the Venus retrograde, you'll end up going back to previous partners or previous romantic interests. Um, I think one of the things I'm also seeing in this chart is the Scorpio should really be careful of his health and also watch out for enemies because people will say um, people will try to defame you during this particular uh, transit of Rahu and Jupiter. Um, Sun is in the ninth house, so good for uh, access to the government, good luck career wise. So focus on career for Scorpio. Um, for Sagittarius, Jupiter's the Lord is of Sagittarius is Jupiter is in the fifth house. It'll bring a lot of unexpected luck. Transitory, but you should probably grab that luck while you can. Okay. Um, so this is not really something that you have to watch out for and say, whoops, I got to wait for the luck to become permanent. Luck is temporary by its definition. Uh, Moon is in the fourth house, could indicate interest in change of residence uh, to improve luck. And Sagittarius, Gemini, excuse me, is the seventh house. So again, there'll be arguments or strife with relationship partners, especially around financial goals. Um, Rahu and Jupiter in the fifth is actually a good placement for this particular sign. It's really it creates a great Raj Yoga for it, or a great combination for it. And K2 in the 11th house, again, do not trust your friends. I keep coming back to this, but just be really careful about your friendships. For Capricorn, Capricorn is has Jupiter in the fourth house, so there'll be a lot of attention on home life and dissatisfaction with the home environment. Sure, my phone's I'm getting a lot of messages on my phone. Moon is in the uh, third house, so there'll be some desire for change, some desire, especially for relationship life. So relationships seem to be a really critical point in this chart. And one of the things that's happening here is relationship partners will actually lie to you to get what they want uh, with this particular combination. Now, this is not true across the board. It depends on your individual chart, but there is a lot of manipulation going on. And I think we're seeing it in the political circles a lot more than we are in personal relationships, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist in personal relationships. So this can be very clever. This can be a very clever combination. It can be used to figure out solutions to problems, which is great. It can also be used to manipulate people. So you have to be aware of that. So if you're asked to enter into a deal or a negotiation, treat it like I need more information. Please give me more information before I agree to anything. And K2's in the 10th house. So again, some career bumps, but this sign will succeed by flying under the radar, as it were. Just stay out of the drama of the workplace. For Aquarius, again, not a bad week for Aquarius. Good for financial growth. Jupiter is well placed for gains, although you may be trying to take on too much right now. Uh, some potential for relationship partners, but again, be really wary um, of relationships at least until the end of August. Um, so there is some potential here for this particular chart in terms of new relationships, but it'll seem like a lot of things are too good to be true. You'll get contacted by people from the past who were who seem like they were good people, and you'll be getting nostalgic for them, but they were really not good people. You know, you left them for a reason. K2's in the ninth house, so that gives a lot of interest in spiritual activity. And career wise, you should be doing fairly well because Mars is well placed for career improvement. For Pisces, finally, last but not least, Moon is in Pisces. Expect some changes over the next few weeks, over the next week or so. Rahu and Jupiter are in the second house, a lot of focus on financial gains. And I'm looking at checking my time. And um, we have Sun in the fifth house as Lord of the sixth house, so children can become enemies, or you may have to pay off debts to the government. Venus, Mercury, Mars. Watch out for coworkers. This sign should watch out for coworkers or for people that it does that are its traditional enemies because um, they'll be sneakier. They'll be trying to um, take you down with words. Let's put it that way. So there'll be gossip about you. If I can put it more clearly. So just keep your nose clean. Don't give them anything to talk about, and you'll be fine. K2's in the eighth house. Again, a good combination for spiritual study, a good combination for trying to dig out details about relationship partners. And finally, Saturn's in the 12th house. Again, expenditures because of friends or because of um, financial mistakes. But again, one thing I would encourage you to look into over the next few months, anybody who's investing in the stock market or anything like that, look at new technologies, in particular energy technologies and communication technologies. That's where, and again, this isn't investment advice, but that's where most of the positive changes will be happening over the next couple of years. Not in things like currencies. Um, I think a lot of the inventions will be connected around things like, just from the chart, will be around things like energy, um, pharmaceuticals, military budgets, and new technologies to improve communication. So those aren't stock picks. Those are just things to take a look at. If you're looking at the economy, those are the growth sectors. Healthcare, obviously, okay, but there'll be new forms of healthcare coming out too. All right, so let's go over to the. So this isn't advising you on where you should put your money. This is just where I see the uh, technological innovations occurring. Okay. All right, so we have a full map this week. Yay. All right, so let's look at where our problems are. There's a Saturn and Mercury line over Saturn, Mercury, Mars line over Alaska and close to Hawaii, so close to Hawaii, which is the island that I visited a few years ago. And I think, again, we're not hearing a lot from this part of the world, but from the South Pacific. Um, I wouldn't be very surprised if there were some flooding or some volcanic or tsunami activity in this part of the world over here. Uh, Moon um, is going over Alaska and not really close to anything else. I'm looking for. So that's really not going to interact with much other than Alaska. So I think you may see uh, some political issues coming out over Alaska. Definitely political scandals happening in uh, Vancouver and Western United States, uh, and even the need for government intervention in Southern California, Arizona, and political political scandals all the way from Canada down to northern Mexico. Um, this line right here is a Venus line, so there'll be some um, flooding or adverse weather conditions down by Texas, Oklahoma, and up into North and South Dakota and Kansas. And over here we have, you know, also some political issues coming up in these areas. And the reason I'm saying that is because Venus is in Leo and Cancer, so it'll be affecting the leadership. And over here we have um, a Saturn line running through Florida, um, Ohio, Michigan. So some economic downturns in this belt right down here through Kentucky and South Carolina. A lot of news coming out of Washington. What a big surprise. Okay, that's really not such a surprise. Also out of Haiti. Haiti's in big trouble right now. Um, a lot of fight. There'll be a lot of fighting or a lot of housing housing issues in Haiti. Um, in South America, all these countries over here are in political turmoil, more or less. Okay. Um, in Brazil and down into Uruguay and Paraguay, maybe even changes of governments and some political scandals coming out of Brazil. Again, that's not really a surprise. Brazil does want to be independent and away from the U.S. And I can't say that I blame them, but they're going to have a lot of issues dealing with um, other countries. And let's go over here. Let's move head over to the left. Um, Venus is going through, Sun and Venus are going through Spain, North Africa, Mali, down into um, down near the Ivory Coast, and also Ghana. And so the Sun Venus conjunction over here, these countries will be kind of in the limelight. Um, but I think um, you'll see a lot of these countries thinking they're going ahead because of financial gains, but really kind of falling behind in the long run. There is a Mercury line, Mercury Saturn line going through Sweden. I'm sorry, Norway, Germany, Italy, um, Libya, and surrounding Algeria. uh, down into areas like Gabon, and I think this combination indicates a lot of domestic strife in these areas. Also, France has a real strong Jupiter line going through, which I hadn't noticed before. And that's a combination of the riots and what's happening with Niger. This is Niger down here, I believe. And we have that Mercury and Saturn line. So that explains the cutoff, definitely. Um, the cutoff of uranium. Mars is going through Libya, so there'll be conflict in Africa all the way down through Central African Republic, all the way down through um, uh, South Africa. Let's see now. This is a really faint line going through essentially close to Ukraine, close to Turkey, close to Saudi Arabia, and close to um, Sudan and Zimbabwe and Angola. And that indicates small changes in governments. So there may be some willingness to compromise or some willingness to negotiate, hopefully, in Ukraine-Russia conflict. There's a Mars line going up through Iran and through the United Arab Emirates. And I think this particular place will have a lot of scandals, a lot of civil unrest, these particular places. This is Kazakhstan up here. And so you'll see civil unrest. And again, like I said, the inflationary pressures we're feeling in the United States are nothing compared to what these countries are experiencing. So again, it's good to keep perspective. I'm not defending what we're going through, but it's good to keep perspective. So if we're hurting, other countries are hurting as well. Not universally. I mean, there are some countries that are doing okay, but a lot of countries are feeling inflationary pressure. There's a strong sun line going through going through eastern India and up through Russia, and also a Venus line going through what I believe is Thailand and China. So essentially there's an entire cluster of planets that are affecting um, Vietnam, Cambodia, um, and also China down in this part, down near Taiwan. And I think you'll see some violence in that part of the world. How extreme, I don't think it's going to be very extreme. And also in Indonesia. And finally, we get over here to this moon line going through Korea. You'll see some shifts in the North Korean and South Korean governments, and also in the Philippines, and also in Australia, and some political scandals happening in um, in Guinea, and also some in New Zealand. So New Zealand has been, from what I've seen on the news, New Zealand has been undergoing a change in government that will continue and will end soon. So that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching. I'm almost all out of time. So I have to say goodbye. Namaste. I love you all. Thank you so much for watching. And if you have comments, if you'd like to appear on the show with me as an astrologer, that'd be great. Just let me know. I'm easy to contact. Thanks a lot, folks. Bye bye.